A researcher at Brigham Young University named Julianne Holt-Lunstad went through 148 separate studies, covering more than 300,000 people, and found that the strength of a man's relationships predicted whether he lived or died as reliably as whether he smoked. Most men hear that and think the answer is more people. Call more often. Say yes more. Keep everyone. It isn't. The same research points the other way. What protects you is not the number of people in your life. It's the quality of the few who are actually in it. And after 60, every hour you hand to the wrong person is an hour the right one never gets. So today I want to walk you through 7 kinds of people worth quietly stepping back from. And I mean quietly. No confrontation, no speech, no burning bridges. Number 6 is the one that surprises men the most, because he is almost never a bad man. He is usually someone you like. And letting go of him is the one that gives you the most of your life back. The first one keeps a ledger. You know him. Every favor he does comes with a small, invisible receipt, and sooner or later, the receipt gets presented. He drove you to the airport in March, so he mentions it in September. He helped you move a couch 11 years ago, and somehow it still comes up. Here is why this one costs more after 60 than it did at 40. When you were working, you had a wide social world that absorbed him. He was one voice in a crowd of dozens. Now the crowd is smaller, and his voice takes up a much larger share of what you hear in a week. Laura Carstensen, a psychologist at Stanford, spent decades studying what happens to people's social lives as they age. Her work, called Socio-Emotional Selectivity Theory, published in American Psychologist in 1999, found something that most men get backwards. As people sense that their time is finite, they don't get lonelier by accident. They get selective on purpose. They start trimming the relationships that feel like transactions and pouring what's left into the few that feel like home. Carstensen's point is that this is not decline. It's judgment. It's the same instinct that makes a man stop reading books he isn't enjoying. Imagine a man named Ray. Retired plumber, decent fellow. Known him since the boys played ball together. Ray calls on a Sunday, and inside 4 minutes, he has mentioned the roof he helped patch. And you find yourself saying yes to something you did not want to do. That is not friendship doing that. That is a debt being collected, over and over, on a loan that was paid off years ago. So the scorekeeper doesn't need a confrontation. He needs less of your calendar. You don't announce anything. You just stop being the first name he calls, and you notice how much lighter the week feels. And watch what he does when you stop. A friend adjusts. A scorekeeper escalates, because the ledger is the whole relationship, and without it he has nothing to say to you. The second one isn't cruel. He's just permanently under a cloud, and he brings it with him. Every conversation is a list of what's wrong. The country, his knees, his son-in-law, the price of everything. You hang up the phone, and you feel like you've been carrying something heavy up a flight of stairs, and you can't name what it was. That feeling is real, and it has been measured. John Cacioppo, a neuroscientist at the University of Chicago, worked with James Fowler and Nicholas Christakis on a study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology in 2009, tracking how loneliness moved through a large social network over many years. What they found is that loneliness behaves less like a private mood and more like something catching. It spread from person to person through the network, reaching people who were several steps removed from where it started. Read that again because it matters. The mood of the men around you is not staying in their heads. It's moving into yours. And Cacioppo's larger work, in his book Loneliness, published in 2008, makes the harder point. A lonely man starts reading the world as more hostile than it is. He expects rejection, so he pulls back first, and the pulling back produces the very isolation he feared. You cannot fix that for him by absorbing it. Sitting in his weather every Tuesday doesn't lift his cloud. It just extends the front over your house too. Cut the frequency, not the man. Once a month instead of once a week. He will not notice. You will. The third one turns every conversation into a scoreboard, and the units are dollars. What the house went for. What the boat cost. What his portfolio did last quarter. What your portfolio should have done. He may not even mean it as competition. It's simply the only language he has left for measuring a life. Tim Kasser, a psychologist at Knox College, spent his career on this exact question and put the findings in a book called The High Price of Materialism, published by MIT Press in 2002. Across study after study, people who organized their lives around money and status reported lower well-being, more anxiety, and worse relationships than people who organized around connection and purpose. Not slightly, consistently. Here is the part that should get your attention. The effect was not only about the people who chased money. It showed up in the atmosphere around them. At 65, you are past the age where any of it can be undone. You are not going to outturn him now. So every hour in that conversation is an hour spent measuring yourself on a ruler that has already stopped moving. There is a simple test for this man. Try telling him about something you enjoyed that cost nothing. A walk, a grandchild, a morning. If he can't stay in that conversation for 2 minutes without steering it back to cost, you have your answer. This is educational content, not financial advice. The fourth is the hardest because he is often family. This is the person whose main instrument is obligation. You should have called. You never visit. After everything that was done for you. The sentences always arrive with a small hook in them, and the hook is designed to make you move. I want to be careful here, because family estrangement is not a thing to be recommended lightly, and the research says so. Karl Pillemer, a sociologist at Cornell, ran the first large national study of family estrangement in the United States and published it in 2020 in a book called Fault Lines. He found that about 27% of American adults have cut off contact with a family member. That is tens of millions of people, and Pillemer believes the real figure is higher, because people are ashamed to admit it even anonymously. But Pillemer's other finding is the one worth holding onto. Of the estranged people he interviewed, a large share eventually found their way back to some kind of contact. Not tidy reconciliations, not everything forgiven, but contact restored. So this one is not about cutting the person out of your life. It's about cutting the currency out of the relationship. You keep seeing him. You simply stop paying in guilt. When the hook comes, you don't argue with it and you don't apologize for it. You answer the actual question and let the hook hang there unused. Do that 4 or 5 times and something interesting happens. He stops using it because it stopped working. The fifth one feels like a friend, and that is exactly the problem. He agrees with you. Always. Every opinion you offer comes back confirmed. Every decision you describe was clearly the right one. It is comfortable in the way a warm room is comfortable, and it is doing you no good at all. A man over 60 is making a small number of decisions that are very hard to reverse. Where to live, whether to sell, which surgery, whether to say the thing to his son that has gone unsaid for 20 years. Those decisions need friction. They need someone who will say, "I think you're wrong about that," and mean it. The Harvard study of adult development is the longest-running study of its kind, following the same men since 1938. Robert Waldinger, its fourth director, wrote up the findings with Mark Schulz in a book called The Good Life in 2023. The headline finding is famous. Relationship quality in midlife predicted physical health decades later better than cholesterol levels did. But the detail that gets quoted less is what they meant by quality. Not pleasantness, not agreement. What predicted the good outcomes was whether a man believed he could count on someone in a crisis, and whether he had someone he could be honest with. The man who agrees with everything fails both tests. He cannot be counted on in a crisis, because he has never once told you something you didn't want to hear. And you cannot be honest with him, because honesty needs somewhere to land. There is a way to test him that takes about a minute. Tell him a decision you are leaning toward, and then tell it to him wrong. Say you are thinking of selling the house when you are not. Watch whether he asks you a single question. The man who cares about you will want to know why. The man who only wants the room to stay warm will tell you it sounds like a good idea. He is pleasant company. He is not a friend. Keep him for lunch and take him out of the decisions. Here is the one I promised you. Somewhere in your life, there is a person who is still relating to a version of you from decades ago. He tells the same 3 stories about you, and they were all true in 1987. He introduces you by the job you no longer hold. He teases you about a weakness you spent 20 years working on and quietly fixed. He isn't a bad man. Often he is one of the oldest friends you have. That is precisely why this is so hard, and why almost no one names it. But sit with what he actually does to a room. Every time you are with him, you are handed back an old self and asked to wear it. And the version of you he hands back is almost always smaller than who you are now. Carstenson's research, again, is useful here. Her finding was that, as time horizons shorten, people move toward relationships that support who they are becoming, not who they were. That's not sentiment. That's a documented shift in what human beings prioritize when they can feel the clock. There is a reason this one gives you the most of your life back. A man in his 60s is doing quiet, serious work. He is deciding what he still wants to be true about himself, and what he is finally willing to let go of. That work needs to be witnessed by someone who is looking at the man in front of him. You don't announce this either. You simply stop volunteering for the occasions where the old stories get told, and you find one person, just one, who met you after 60 and knows nothing about 1987. The last one has no crime attached to him at all. That's what makes him the most expensive. He is in your life because he has always been in your life. There was a reason once. A job, a neighborhood, a wife who was friends with his wife. The reason is gone, and the standing arrangement isn't. Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist at Oxford, spent years mapping the structure of human social networks and found that they arrange themselves in layers. Around 150 people you can hold as meaningful acquaintances, and inside that, a very small innermost circle of roughly 5 people who actually matter. 5. That is the real number. And Dunbar's central point is that those slots are limited by something you cannot negotiate with, which is time and attention. So run the arithmetic honestly. If one of your 5 is occupied by a man you see out of momentum, that slot is not empty, and it is not available. Your daughter is not in it. The friend you have been meaning to call for 2 years is not in it. Habit is. This is where Holt-Lunstad's finding from the opening comes back with teeth. Her review, published in PLoS Medicine in 2010, found that people with stronger social relationships had roughly a 50% greater likelihood of survival over the study periods. Stronger, not more numerous. You are not being asked to become a hermit. You are being asked to notice that 5 slots exist, that they are currently full, and that you are the only person who decides who occupies them. None of this requires a confrontation. That is the part I want you to take away. There is no speech to give. No friendship to end at a dinner table. Every one of these is done the same way, by adjusting frequency, by declining an invitation without a reason attached, by letting a phone call go to voicemail on a Tuesday and not calling back until Friday. The scorekeeper, the man who brings the weather, the man who keeps score with money, the one who bills you in guilt, the man who agrees with everything, the man who only knows who you used to be, and the person who is simply still there. Carstenson's work says the instinct you already feel to do this is not a symptom of getting old. It is one of the clearest signs of judgment that adulthood produces. So here is the only assignment. Take 1 week. Notice how you feel in the hour after each person leaves or hangs up. Not during, after. Lighter or heavier. That's it. Your body has already done the sorting. All you have to do is stop overruling it. And if one name came to you in the first 30 seconds of this video and kept coming back, you didn't need 7 categories. You already knew.